Ever been bitten by impermanent loss? Yeah, me too. In diving into Thorchain a little bit more, I have learned that in providing liquidity, as long as you do this for a period of 100 days or more, then you are guaranteed to be no worse off than you would have if you would have just held the assets. Basically, as per their white paper, to incentivize people to provide and keep liquidity in the pools, much like how Anchor Protocol that we are perhaps familiar with on Terra helped to sustain the borrow and lend rates on Anchor Protocol, they subsidize the pools and the reward system with their native token. So Thorchain uses its RUNE token to subsidize LP position holders. So Thorchain uses its reserve to, and I quote, underwrite LP assets against impermanent loss on a sliding scale from 0 to 100% after 100 days. There are, however, a few key points to this feature. 1. The reserve has to have enough RUNE to cover it, obviously. 2. The pools are of high quality and Thorchain's pool curation logic is not susceptible to enterprising RUNE holders wanting to game the system. Finally, point 3, the LPs earn enough in the first 100 days to be in the green, so the need for impermanent loss protection is somewhat minimized. So to see why this is so important, let's have a recap of impermanent loss. So to provide liquidity, you need to add 2 assets to the pool. That's not strictly true, but we'll get to that in a minute. Essentially, balancing a transaction to allow for 2 assets to be provided in equal dollar values. Let's say $1,000 worth of ETH and $1,000 worth of RUNE. Now, over time, during the market downturn, people and arbitrageurs will work to rebalance the total value of the pool by either adding in ETH or removing RUNE. As a result, your LP position will be increasing on the ETH side to try and keep this equilibrium we talked about earlier. Because obviously now ETH is worth less, you will need more ETH to make up that $1,000 RUNE equivalent. Similarly, the opposite would happen in a bullish run too. Arbitrageurs would again work to balance the pool and removing ETH or adding in RUNE. If you now compare the total value of your LP position against what you would have had if you'd have just purely held these assets and never provided liquidity, you will sometimes notice that the difference is that the value is basically down. This is often covered in the fees paid as a reward for providing liquidity. If you provide LP positions into liquidity pools, often you will get a percentage of the transaction fees, which reflects your total percentage value of the entire liquidity pool. But sometimes this just isn't enough. This is called impermanent loss, and it's called impermanent because whilst it remains in the pool and you haven't realized this loss, then, that's not chalked up yet. This is actually quite similar to the way that traditional finance will look at their positions as unrealized profit and loss. And also you may find that given a few days, the price action may change in a favorable direction, bringing the total LP position back to its original value. So let's go back to the Thorchain white paper. You can also see that an additional measure taken to prevent against these losses here is a slip-based fee. Similar to Bancor, they use a continuous liquidity pool-based model, which is liquidity sensitive, meaning it does a better job of managing the liquidity in the pool. Now, that's a massively oversimplified analogy, but you get the point. The impermanent loss protection, or ILP, covers you regardless of whether you provide symmetric or asymmetric liquidity. Again, this is managed by the fact that if you choose to single-side stake, essentially what is happening in the background is that Thorchain will split your single-sided position in half, sell half of it into the required asset to provide the other side of the liquidity pair, and when you retrieve it, it will do the opposite. So you're never actually really providing asymmetric liquidity. They're just managing that position split for you. Now, the ILP is obviously, as I mentioned, dependent on the reserve having enough RUNE to cover these impermanent losses of users. Also, a final note, this will not retain your dollar value, it will help retain your asset value. If both sides of your LP position's assets tank, then your entire LP position will be worth considerably less, even if the asset amount remains the same. And that is perhaps something that a lot of people are misunderstanding. There's actually been a few decent discussions that I spotted on Twitter today whilst I was sort of sat thinking up this video, and they gained quite a bit of traction. So I will put those links down in this video description and you can have a read through those Twitter threads. I don't want to bombard you with visual graphics and massive amounts of maths and numbers. There's plenty of resources out there. These Twitter posts were by Larry0x and the Thorchain LPU Twitter users. So just a super short one today, but I've been in crypto for a good while and honestly was amazed to see this protection being built into one of these platforms. And it's not just a we'll probably cover it due to the high APR that we see on some other chains. This is really exciting stuff. And again, I'm really excited to see Luna coming to Thorchain. So keep your eyes peeled for more Luna-based content and more Thorchain-based content coming from us. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to be notified when we release brand new content. We appreciate all of your support so much and it really helps our channel grow. We have very recently hit a huge personal milestone for me, which is 5,000 subscribers. And all of us here at Yield Labs are super, super proud and super happy to be bringing content to you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will catch you in the next one. Stay awesome, guys.